Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere dry, dusty, and deeply uncooperative, the American Wild West. Picture this: your boots thud onto a plank sidewalk as a tumbleweed makes a dramatic exit stage left. The rising sun already has sharp teeth, a fly lands in your eyebrow, and a local mutters something about greenhorns before spitting at your shoes. You're here, all right, but you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive at dawn, which sounds poetic, but really just means everything smells faintly of horses and unresolved aggression. The air has a sour dryness to it, like old paper soaked in whiskey and then left to bake. The town, if you can call it that, consists of one dirt road, a handful of leaning wooden structures, and a distant, untrustworthy creek. Your boots crunch across gravel that somehow manages to be both sharp and sticky. There's a general store, a saloon with swinging doors doing their best to look intimidating, and a jail whose door hangs slightly off its hinges. You look around for a welcome sign or even a person with a friendly face. Nope. All you get is a kid staring at you while chewing on something he probably found on the ground. He's wearing one shoe. A man in a wide-brimmed hat gives you a look that's part suspicion, part constipation. He nods once, but it's not friendly. It's the kind of nod that says, "Don't touch my horse, stranger." You nod back because you don't know what else to do. Congratulations, you've now had your first Wild West standoff, and it involved no weapons but plenty of eye contact. Historians still argue whether these frontier towns were more welcoming to strangers than movies suggest. Some say they were desperate for new settlers and open to outsiders. Others argue most folks were just one stolen chicken away from a shootout. Based on the current vibe, you'd lean toward the latter. You head toward the livery stable, hoping someone can tell you where to go, or even who you're supposed to be here. The stable smells like damp hay and horses with unresolved anger issues. A teenage boy with straw-colored hair and a suspiciously large pitchfork looks up and says, "You looking to rent or steal?" You chuckle, assuming it's a joke. He doesn't. Just then, a rooster crows. Not one of those elegant, storybook crows, but a screeching, soul-shattering noise that sounds like someone stepped on a bagpipe made of feathers. You flinch, and the stable boy grins. "City folk," he mutters. Now you try to collect yourself. You're here to experience a day in the Wild West, maybe help out on a ranch, do some trading, maybe even find some gold. Unfortunately, the town has other ideas. You wander over to the town central well, hoping for some water. Instead, you get a bucket full of something you suspect has a tadpole in it. You quietly put it back and pretend you weren't thirsty anyway. A man rides by on horseback, spitting tobacco juice onto the road with precision that suggests he's been practicing since birth. He tips his hat just slightly, then realizes you're not someone he knows and rides off with new urgency. You try not to take it personally. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on the wardrobe situation. You're in sturdy boots that already feel half a size too small, long woolen trousers, and a shirt that feels like it's made of iron burlap. You try adjusting your hat, which was charmingly oversized in the mirror back home but now flops forward and completely blinds you in the wind. You're dressed for cosplay, not survival. A dog barks in the distance. You can't see it, but it sounds large and emotionally unstable. You're starting to feel like the Wild West is less about adventure and more about gently humiliating you at every turn. A bell rings somewhere behind you, and suddenly the town seems to rouse. A couple of shop doors creak open. A woman in a bonnet walks by balancing a basket full of eggs that you'd bet were collected under duress. Two men begin arguing about whose ox trampled whose fence. You catch snippets, twice now, and that ox don't know fences from wind. Before they both stop and glare at you like you're the one who started it. You decide to keep moving. As you stroll, more of a squinting, wary shuffle, really, you pass a blacksmith shop. Sparks fly inside, clanging rings out, and the heat hits you like you've opened a fiery oven full of boiling anger. The blacksmith looks like he wrestles iron for fun and wins. He nods. You don't nod back. You're too afraid it might be interpreted as a work request. And then there's the smell. Oh yes, you're starting to get it now. The Wild West wasn't cleaned up by a Hollywood production crew. It smells like horses, sweat, leather, and distant manure with notes of wet dog and undercooked beans. It's the odor frontier. You're already starting to feel sticky in places you don't want to talk about. As the sun climbs higher, your boots start to betray you. They weren't made for this uneven, rock-strewn terrain. You think you feel a blister forming on your sole. You pass the town schoolhouse, where a single bell tolls, and a child throws a rock at a cactus for entertainment. A woman with chalk-stained fingers eyes you suspiciously from the doorway. You wave. She does not wave back. There's a man asleep on a bench, a chicken perched on his knee. No one seems alarmed. One thing's becoming increasingly clear: survival here isn't just about avoiding rattlesnakes and duels, it's about earning the town's trust. Or at least avoiding their suspicion long enough to get through the day without being challenged to a horse race, poker game, or duel involving soup spoons. By the time the clock chimes 9 a.m., or what passes for 9 a.m., based on the sun and the innkeeper's cough, you already feel like you've lived a full day. Your legs ache. Your pride's been kicked around like a can. Your hat keeps sliding forward. And the general store owner just muttered, "Hope you're not here to cause trouble," without even looking up from his ledger. It's going to be a long day. The saloon doors swing just as dramatically as you'd hoped, but that's about where the glamour ends. You step inside expecting a brief reprieve from the dry, eye-watering sunlight. Instead, you're greeted by a wall of smells: sweat, stale beer, pine sawdust, and an undercurrent of something that might be pickled eggs or someone's forgotten boots. The light inside is dim, thanks to the thick, dirty windows and a haze of smoke that seems to be lingering not just from cigars, but possibly from the building itself. The room goes quiet as your boots hit the floorboards. Not quiet like a record scratch, more like a quiet in which every patron suddenly finds their drink or their boots fascinating. The piano player keeps playing, but now it's more of a soft, aimless plink, as if he's ready to stop the moment someone flips a table. You make your way to the bar, trying to channel every dusty outlaw you've ever seen in a movie. But instead of a confident lean, you sort of thud against the counter, sending a nearby bowl of peanuts into orbit. You recover, and when the bartender finally looks up, she raises one eyebrow like she's already tired of you. "What'll it be?" she says, voice flat as sunbaked dirt. You smile. "Just water." The room actually laughs. Not the whole room, but enough that you realize you've made a misstep. The bartender doesn't move. "Water," she repeats, drawing it out like you just asked for imported silk. "We don't serve water. We got beer, rye, or coffee that can take the paint off a wagon." Someone behind you says, "He can have my water, once I'm done bathing in it," and the room erupts into mild, dusty chuckles. You're tempted to pivot, say it was a joke, but the bartender's already poured something into a chipped cup and slid it your way. It smells like a mixture of pine, molasses, and regret. You sip. You cough. You die a little. And she nods like that's the correct reaction. A tall man with a drooping mustache and a hat big enough to serve soup eyes you from a nearby table. He flicks his cards onto the table, one at a time, with exaggerated drama. "New in town," he drawls. You nod, cautious. "Then you're in luck," he says. "Buy-in's only 2 bits. Game's just starting." You glance at the table, 4 men, none smiling, all holding their cards like secrets and eyeing you like meat. Your instincts say no. Your pride, of course, says, "You're here to experience the Wild West, right? And besides, you're curious. Maybe you can win a coin or 2. Maybe the universe will reward your bravery." The universe has other plans. You drop your coin on the table and sit. The game begins. Cards fly, eyebrows twitch, someone sighs like they've seen the end of all things. You're barely keeping up. You think you've got a decent hand, pair of eights, which felt powerful in your kitchen back home, but when you reveal them, the man next to you flattens for queens on the table and smiles with only 6 teeth. You try to act casual. Beginner's luck, you mumble. The man with the mustache doesn't smile. Ain't no such thing here, he says. Historians still argue whether saloons were really this intense. Some accounts say they were mostly calm social hubs, filled with music, dancing, and neighborly chat. Others claim fights broke out over spilled drinks and off-key piano notes. Here and now, you're inclined to believe the latter. The bartender leans across the bar. You should probably go, she murmurs. Hank there doesn't like losing. And he really doesn't like greenhorns. Hank, the man who just relieved you of your coin, stands, stretches, and cracks his neck. He's not looking at you, but his body language screams soon. You leave. Outside, the sun is now fully awake and punishing. It's already well past 90 degrees, and the heat is dry, gritty, and relentless. You wipe sweat from your forehead with a sleeve that was, until moments ago, your cleanest piece of clothing. As you exit, someone throws a bucket of water into the road, splashing your boots and shins. A woman shouts after a pig, and the pig seems to be winning. You lean against a hitching post to collect yourself, and that's when you realize 2 things. 1, your stomach is starting to complain. That breakfast you skipped is catching up with you. 2, you're now out of money. You pat your pockets, hoping you've miscounted your misfortune. Nope. The last coin went to the table. Your dignity is still somewhere in the saloon, nursing a black eye. And speaking of eye injuries, you finally make contact with a horse. Not intentionally. You're turning to look down the street when a long face with big brown eyes and the overwhelming scent of hay and old leather brushes against your cheek. You yelp. The horse just blinks at you, totally unimpressed. Its rider, however, does not blink. You spook my horse again, he growls, and you'll find out what boot leather tastes like. You apologize profusely. He snorts and rides off, kicking dust in your face. You sneeze. Twice. It echoes down the street. A small child laughs. You try to walk it off. Just a little stroll, you think. Clear your head. But as you wander toward the edge of town, the scenery gets more concerning. You pass a sign that reads "No trespassing, even if you're sorry." You pass a man who is painting a fence and also staring at you like you're the fence. You pass an alley where 2 dogs are playing tug-of-war with something you very much hope is a stick. Eventually, you find yourself outside a small building labeled Document H. Spindler, Teeth and Leeching. You decide not to knock. The wind picks up, carrying with it dust, whispers, and a single playing card. It flutters past you and lands face up. A joker. Of course it is. It's not even noon yet. And you're already out of money, out of favor, and possibly being watched by a man chewing tobacco with the intensity of someone planning something. You find a bench. It wobbles but holds. You sit. You look up at the sky, blue, cloudless, uncaring. And for a moment, you wonder how people did this. How they woke up each day, knowing the sun would be merciless, the water questionable, the people unpredictable. How they thrived out here without deodorant, breakfast options, or Yelp reviews. You close your eyes. Breathe deep. Try to center yourself. And then the sheriff walks by, gives you a once-over, and says flatly, "Keep moving, stranger." Because nothing in the Wild West says relax and reflect. Not even a bench. You get up from the wobbly bench because, frankly, you don't want the sheriff staring at you like you're already halfway into a wanted poster. Your stomach growls. Loudly. A passing mule turns to look at you. Okay. It's time to find something to eat. You follow your nose, though it might be misled, toward a small shack that appears to be part restaurant, part home, part ongoing structural collapse. A wooden sign nailed above the entrance reads Clara's Cooking, with the paint half faded and the apostrophe dangling like it gave up halfway. You push the door open and step inside. The smell hits you immediately: beans. Not in a comforting, grandmother's kitchen way. More like someone's been simmering beans for 4 days with no spices and occasional emotional distress. There's also something else: burnt coffee and, is that kerosene? Behind the counter, Clara, presumably, turns to face you. She's wearing a calico dress, a white apron streaked with something that might be molasses or shoe polish, and a look that says she's seen too much. You eating or sitting? She asks. You consider answering both, but something about her expression makes you stick to one word: eating. She points to a table by the window. Sit. Menus on the wall. You glance over. The menu, painted directly onto the planks, lists the following: beans, bread, beans and bread, mystery stew, yesterday's coffee, Clara's pickled somethings, limit 1. You go with the safe option: bread and beans. Though safe is probably not the word anyone in this establishment has used since 1872. Clara ladles something thick and brownish from a cast iron pot into a dented tin bowl, slaps a hunk of bread beside it, and brings it to your table with the enthusiasm of someone feeding livestock. You thank her. She grunts. You take a bite. The beans are dense, flavorless, somehow both undercooked and overcooked. The bread is dry enough to function as roofing material. You chew slowly, trying to convince your body it's nourishment. It remains unconvinced. You sip the water she's left in a glass that feels questionably clean. It's warm and metallic, and you sincerely hope it hasn't shared a tub with any livestock. Across the room, 2 men are arguing about whether or not a railroad will be passing through. One insists it's coming by fall. The other says he heard it's heading 10 miles east instead, and everyone here will be left broke and dusty. Clara interrupts with, "Ain't none of you getting a railroad if you keep stiffing me on your tabs." Historians still argue whether railroad rumors fueled the development of towns or their slow abandonment. Some towns thrived with just the hope of a rail line, while others dried up the moment they were bypassed by progress. You scrape the bottom of your bowl and brave a bite of the bread's crust. It shatters like an artifact. A man walks in and shouts, "Anyone seen my goat?" No one answers. This seems normal. As you eat, you notice Clara wiping down tables with what appears to be the same cloth she used to handle a skillet moments ago. She hums softly to herself, a vaguely threatening tune. You wonder what the mystery might be and decide not to solve it. When you finish, you thank her again. She squints at you, then nods once. High praise, apparently. You step outside into the glare of noon sun. It's even hotter now, and your shirt is sticking to your back like a needy barnacle. The only shade is cast by a slowly circling buzzard. You try not to take it personally. Your stomach now feels like it's hosting a very slow, very sad parade. Been sloshing gently in time with your footsteps. A light rumble reminds you there may be digestive consequences later. Wild West meals, it turns out, aren't known for subtlety. You continue down the street, passing the general store, which proudly advertises candy, shovels, cornmeal, and bullets. Inside, a small boy is staring at a barrel of jawbreakers with religious reverence. Outside, a man is napping beside a crate of turnips, possibly both drunk and on break from being a prophet. You're halfway down the block when it hits you. That bread? That wasn't just hard, it fought back. Your jaw aches. Your teeth feel betrayed. You pause beside a horse trough and consider dunking your face in it. The water is murky, possibly host to several sentient organisms, and smells faintly of hooves. Still, it's tempting. A boy walks by holding a lizard on a string like a pet. He nods solemnly at you. You nod back. This feels significant somehow. In the distance, a train whistle blows, sharp and clear. The townsfolk look up like they've seen a ghost. Some shield their eyes. Others mutter, "It's not coming here." You already know that. You sit on a low wall near the feed store and listen as two older men argue about the best way to cook jackrabbit. One insists you stew it with onions for 3 days. The other says the trick is burying it in coals with sagebrush. Neither mention spices. One coughs something that sounds like rattlesnake surprise, but you don't ask for clarification. You glance down and notice your boots are coated in dust, crusted beans, and, possibly, a stray pickle seed. They squeak ominously when you shift. A skinny man with one sleeve missing leans against the post next to you. "You knew?" he asks. You nod. He spits into the dust. "Figured." You look hydrated. You thank him? He laughs. "They'll fix that," he says, then saunters off. A tumbleweed rolls gently past, as if to confirm the prophecy. You decide to stretch your legs and explore behind the main street. The back alleys are quieter, less traffic, more rustling sounds that could be cats or ghosts or both. You see a woman hanging laundry while 3 chickens peck around her feet like entitled customers. She eyes you but says nothing. You wander toward a shed and peek in. Empty. Smells like old boots and onions. You close the door. In the far distance, you see what looks like a small vegetable garden. Rows of hardy little plants, the soil dry but determined. A man kneels beside it, muttering prayers or recipes, you can't tell which. As you approach, he turns, smiles with 3 teeth, and offers you something green and suspicious. You decline politely. Turns out, even vegetables in the Wild West come with a side of danger. You loop back toward the main street, hoping to find a safe place to rest. A shady corner, perhaps. But the sun finds everything here. It melts candles, spoils milk, and makes people irritable by default. You pass the saloon again. The same group of men are still playing cards, or possibly just sitting there to intimidate passers-by. Someone tosses a peanut shell your way. You pretend not to notice. You find a bench in front of the sheriff's office, the very one from earlier. It's marginally less wobbly than the last one. You sit, hoping to let your meal settle and your spirit uncrumple. But you've barely closed your eyes when a child shouts, "Look out," and a wagon rumbles past at alarming speed, leaving a cloud of dust and what may have been someone's hat behind. The sheriff pokes his head out of the office, sighs, and says, "That's the 4th one this week." You nod. You don't know what else to say. You're full of beans, low on dignity, and just now realizing that what you thought would be a simple meal has turned into a digestive adventure. And it's still not even 2 p.m. You're still sitting on the bench in front of the sheriff's office, wondering if the heat has started whispering to you. Your stomach is now engaged in some kind of internal bean-based protest. Nothing dramatic, just a low, slow rebellion building like thunder in the distance. A reminder that Wild West cuisine isn't something your modern digestive system trained for. A horse snorts beside you, and you realize you're dangerously close to its hindquarters. You decide it's time to move, preferably in a direction that involves less manure and fewer potential kicks to the face. But as you rise, a shadow falls across your path. It's not dramatic. More of a dusty lurching. A man, broad-shouldered, skin like leather left out in the sun, steps in front of you. His boots creak as he stops. "You the one asking about the mule last night?" he asks, voice flat as a dry creek bed. You blink. "I know." He squints at you like he's trying to figure out if that's a lie worth fighting over. "HMPH, he mutters, then walks off without further explanation. You're starting to suspect that social interactions out here operate on a logic all their own. Feeling newly unwelcome once again, you decide to walk toward the outskirts of town, just far enough to stretch your legs and get away from staring eyes, flying peanut shells, and unpredictable livestock. But as you make your way down the dusty track, something else becomes apparent: everyone is watching you. Not overtly, but subtly. Doors shift. Curtains flutter. A man pretending to fix a wagon wheel keeps glancing over like you owe him money from a dream he had. It dawns on you, you're an outsider. And in this world, that's pretty much code for untrustworthy until proven otherwise. Historians still debate whether frontier towns were truly hostile to newcomers or if that's a myth shaped by dime novels and bad lighting. Some accounts claim travelers were welcomed with open arms and fresh cornbread. Others paint a picture much like what you're experiencing now. Deeply skeptical stares and passive-aggressive goats. As you walk, you try smiling at people. That doesn't go great. A woman nods back, sure, but in the same way someone might acknowledge a raccoon they hope will leave their trash alone. A man adjusts his gun belt and turns his back. A child throws a small rock near your boot, like he's practicing aim. You wave. He sticks out his tongue. You reach the end of the street, where the houses thin out and the landscape turns fully sunburnt. A few low, sagging fences mark boundaries, but mostly it's just scrubland, cacti, and that one buzzing insect that insists on circling your face. You stop beside a half-built barn, where a man with a hammer and a perpetual squint is working alone. He glances at you and says, "You looking for work or just wandering?" You hesitate. Technically you're doing both. He wipes his brow, shrugs. Well, don't just stand there. Grab that bucket of nails. And just like that, you're employed. Kind of. The work is rustic. By which we mean, you're doing something with wooden tools you don't understand under the unforgiving sun while being silently judged by a man named Walt who communicates primarily through grunts. You try holding up a plank. Walt says, "Too crooked." You hold it differently. "Too soft." You hammer a nail. It bends like a soggy noodle. Walt says nothing, just takes the hammer, fixes it in 2 hits, and moves on. By the third bent nail, you've begun to sweat in entirely new regions of your body. The back of your knees. The sides of your ears. Your spine itches like it's growing moss. Walt hands you a bucket of what looks like tar. "Seal the roof seam," he says, pointing to a suspiciously tilted ladder. You glance at the ladder. You glance at Walt. He's not joking. You climb the ladder. Slowly. Carefully. Each step creaks like it's about to testify against you. The roof groans under your weight, and the tar smells like punishment. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows, and you almost drop the bucket. Up here, you can see the town more clearly, crooked fences, tiny gardens, livestock wandering too far, smoke curling from chimneys. It looks peaceful from this angle. Maybe even charming. Then your hat blows off and lands directly in a trough full of suspiciously green water. You sigh. Of course. By the time you're done smearing tar along the seam, and incidentally your own elbow, Walt calls up, "That'll do." Which is high praise, apparently. You climb back down. Your legs feel like overcooked noodles. Walt nods once and hands you a biscuit. Not money. Not thanks. A biscuit. You eat it. It's dry, salty, and somehow reminds you of old wagon wheels, but it's food. You say thanks. Walt grunts. "You're all right, I guess," he says, walking away with the enthusiasm of a man headed to argue with a stump. It's mid-afternoon now. The sun's starting to tilt but hasn't given up its campaign to boil the top layer of your skin. You're caked in dust, your arms ache, your hat is still soggy, and the smell of tar has embedded itself somewhere behind your eyeballs. You return to town walking a little slower, a little lower to the ground. The judgmental glares aren't as intense now, some folks nod faintly. One man actually says, "Afternoon," which feels like a breakthrough. Still, your shirt clings to you like a disappointed parent. Your boots squelch. Your hands are sticky. And you're wondering if a snakebite might be more pleasant than another encounter with Wild West hospitality. You pass the saloon again. Hank's still there. He sees you, narrows his eyes, then goes back to his cards. Progress. At the livery stable, the same teenage boy from earlier is brushing a mule. "You look like you lost a fight with breakfast," he remarks. You nod. And lunch. He grins. Wait till dinner. Great. A breeze kicks up. It feels like someone breathing on you through a warm washcloth. The dust stings your eyes. You keep walking. You pass the town's church, a small, whitewashed structure with a crooked steeple and a sign that reads Sunday service, God willing and weather permitting. A single bell dangles from a rope. It doesn't ring. As you trudge past the post office, the clerk, who you're fairly sure has been standing motionless since sunrise, finally moves. Letter for a Frilly McButtonpants, he yells. No one answers. He shrugs and goes back to his silent vigil. A dog follows you for half a block, sniffing at your boots before deciding you're not edible. You feel judged. Again. Eventually, you reach the edge of town again and sit on a boulder that offers both shade and the mild risk of scorpions. Your hands are blistered. Your neck is burnt. Your body is beginning to understand what manual labor meant before the invention of air conditioning and ergonomic chairs. And still, the day isn't over. There's still the chance of a duel. Or a raccoon in the outhouse. Or both. You close your eyes. You breathe. You smell like tar and regret. Welcome to the Wild West. You're starting to think that every step you take in this town triggers a new side quest, most of which involve discomfort, confusion, and one of your senses being mildly offended. Today's next adventure? The horse. You've seen them all around town, standing in the sun like judgmental statues, tails flicking, heads occasionally bobbing as if they're in on the joke that is your existence. You, on the other hand, haven't even been near a horse since that one petting zoo birthday party where a Shetland pony sneezed on your jacket. But here in the Wild West, if you want to get anywhere or just look like you belong, you need a horse. Or at least be seen trying to mount one. So you head to the livery stable, where the teenager from earlier is still brushing the same mule, possibly in slow motion. He squints at you. You riding? You nod like you know what that means. He gestures toward a medium-sized, chestnut-colored horse that seems both sleepy and extremely unimpressed. That there's Myrtle. She don't bite, often. You approach Myrtle with the cautious optimism of someone hoping for a mutual agreement. She flares her nostrils and blinks once, slowly, like she's weighing the pros and cons of dealing with you today. You try to saddle her. It goes poorly. The saddle is heavier than expected and floppier than seems reasonable. The straps make no sense, and at one point you accidentally put the blanket on sideways, which earns you an actual sigh from the horse. You're fairly sure that's a bad sign. Teenage stable boy watches, chewing something nonchalantly. You ever done this before? I've watched movies, you say, too honestly. He snorts. Myrtle's gonna eat you alive. Eventually, he helps you secure the saddle, tightening something called a cinch and explaining what a stirrup is without laughing too hard. All right, he says, stepping back. Mount up. That's where the real trouble begins. You put one foot in the stirrup and try to swing your other leg over. Instead, you get halfway and freeze, boots suspended in midair, arms flailing for balance, Myrtle shifting slightly like she's deciding whether to assist or retaliate. You land bella first across the saddle like a potato in a coat. Graceful. Somewhere nearby, a small child claps. Eventually, with effort and a surprising amount of sound effects, you manage to right yourself and actually sit upright. Myrtle shifts again. You're now at her mercy. And then she starts moving. It's not a gallop. It's more of a shuffle. A swaying, lurching, jostling walk that makes you question whether your spine is attached correctly. You bounce slightly with every step. Your knees start to ache. Your backside registers a complaint. You try to steer her down the road, which involves gently pulling the reins and whispering hopeful encouragements like go and a please. Myrtle ignores these, choosing her own route, which seems to be toward a cactus. You tug the reins again, more firmly. She turns her head slightly and emits a noise that sounds like a condescending exhale. The stable boy calls after you, she likes corn mash and being told she's pretty. Same, you shout back. Now trotting, yes, trotting, Myrtle takes you down the dusty main road, past the saloon, past the general store, past several people who stop what they're doing just to watch you bounce by like an uncomfortable sack of potatoes. You nod. A hat blows off someone's head. A goat bleats. Myrtle seems entirely unaffected. Historians still argue whether riding horses was an everyday norm for most townsfolk or more of a cowboy luxury. Some say only the wealthier folks or lawmen had consistent access to good horses. Others argue even young kids knew how to ride by age 6. Either way, it's clear you are not one of those people. You attempt to turn. Myrtle refuses. Instead, she wanders into a yard and stops beside a rain barrel, where she begins sniffing the wood with alarming focus. You tug the reins. She doesn't care. You try a soft kick, nothing. Then she lowers her head and starts drinking, loudly. You take this moment to breathe. It's hot. Your shirt is now officially soaked. Your hands are cramped from gripping leather like it owes you rent. Your legs are starting to shake. And your pride? Somewhere back by the livery, probably hiding behind a hay bale. After a while, Myrtle lifts her head and, without warning, begins walking again. This time straight toward a small gathering of townsfolk near the blacksmith shop. As you approach, you hear raised voices. A woman is yelling about a wagon dispute. A man with a mustache that could shelter a small bird insists she's lying. The blacksmith himself, arms crossed, apron smeared with soot, says only, "You'll want to settle this with words or fists." That's when Myrtle stops. Dead still. And then, sensing your exact moment of false confidence, lets out a massive sneeze, flinging horse snot directly onto your boot. The entire group turns to look at you. You raise one hand, like a weary parade queen. Just passing through. No one laughs. The mustache man mutters, "City folk." The woman nods grimly. The blacksmith grins. You guide Myrtle away, or rather, she decides to walk off just as you give up steering. It's unclear who's in charge anymore. Eventually, you return to the stable, legs shaking, pride completely unraveled. Dismounting proves to be its own comedy. One boot catches in the stirrup, and you slowly, awkwardly slide down the horse like melted cheese until you land in a crouch, trying to pretend you meant to do that. "Nice ride," the stable boy asks, not looking up. You hand him the reins. "She's majestic," you say. "She pooped twice in the general store alley." You nod. "Same." He leads Myrtle away while you stagger back into town on legs made of overcooked noodles. You now understand something critical: horses are not your friends. They are large, sentient, sarcastic creatures who know exactly how much experience you don't have and delight in punishing you for it. You sit down by a trough, not too close, and stretch your legs. Everything hurts. Your hips. Your back. Your self-esteem. Someone walks by and mutters, "Should have used a mule." You stare at the sky, which continues to offer no apologies, no shade, and no cloud cover. You are now sun-toasted, horse-weary, and slightly damp in places you didn't know could get damp. And there are still 7 hours left in the day. The sun is now fully overhead, burning, blinding, and deeply personal. It's no longer just heat, it's heat with a vendetta. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question all your life choices, especially the one where you thought, wouldn't it be fun to spend a day in the Wild West? You're trudging back toward the center of town, your limbs moving like they're filled with warm molasses. Every step kicks up dust. Every blink stings. Even the fly seems slower now, drunk on heat and bad decisions. You try to find shade, but there's none to be had. This town was not built for comfort. There are no awnings, no generous trees, just warped planks, blistered paint, and the faint smell of scorched onions drifting from Clara's kitchen. Your shirt clings to your back like a wet napkin. Your hat, which was once jaunty, is now a sweat-stained sponge. You consider removing it until you remember that without it, your scalp would probably burst into flame. Someone walks past, nods at you, and says, "Hot enough for YA, which is clearly a trap. You just smile weakly, unwilling to start a fight you'd lose on so many levels. Historians still argue whether folks in the 19th century West actually wore all that wool and leather in summer. Some believe travelers and settlers adapted their dress, lighter cottons, looser fits, occasional bandanas soaked in water. Others claim people simply endured it because they didn't know any better. Either way, right now, you're wearing enough layers to make a baked potato jealous. You try to remember the last time you drank water. Probably somewhere between your second humiliation and your first biscuit. There's a trough ahead, but you remember what you saw in it earlier, something green, possibly sentient, and decide to pass. Instead, you duck behind the general store, hoping to find a bit of shade. There's a sliver of darkness between a crate of pickaxes and a barrel of pickled eggs. You wedge yourself in, half sitting, half collapsing, and let out a sigh that feels like it's been waiting since breakfast. The heat doesn't go away. But it pauses, slightly. You can hear the buzz of insects, the creak of wood expanding in the sun, and the soft murmur of voices from the saloon nearby. It's a sleepy kind of soundscape, like the town itself is dozing with one eye open, still waiting for something bad to happen. You lean back and stare at the sky. It's a blue so harsh it's practically taunting you. You wonder how anyone functioned in this. And then you remember, they didn't really. Not well, anyway. Heat stroke was common. Dehydration, too. People passed out, got lost, forgot to stop working in the fields until it was too late. The Wild West wasn't just dangerous because of outlaws, it was dangerous because the environment itself was casually trying to kill you every hour of the day. You reach into your pocket, pull out the canteen someone handed you this morning. It's warm. The water inside tastes like tin and maybe sadness. But you sip anyway. 2 sips in, you hear a thud nearby. You peek around the corner. A man has collapsed in front of the jail. No one rushes over. No one screams. The sheriff just saunters out, pokes him with a stick, and mutters, "He'll come to." Happens around noon. You're alarmed. And also not surprised. This place has a rhythm, one that involves a lot of fainting, spitting, and shrugging. Eventually, someone throws a damp cloth over the man's face. Someone else brings a piece of bread. The town's unofficial cure for everything. You turn your attention back to your tiny sliver of shade. It's shrinking. The sun's rotating around like an interrogator with a flashlight. You have about 10 more minutes before your corner turns into a toaster oven again. You stand, stretch, and instantly regret it. Your back makes a sound like uncooked pasta. Your knees wobble. You blink and realize you've started seeing shimmering waves in the air. Mirage-level heat. The kind cartoons used to indicate things are about to go sideways. You stumble toward Clara's, hoping she's got something cold, or at least not hot. Maybe a biscuit that's been left out long enough to cool. Clara eyes you as you enter. "You look like a sunburn with boots," she says. You collapse onto a stool. "Got anything cold?" She pours something vaguely amber into a glass and slides it toward you. It's not cold. But it's wet. You sip. It's sour and thick and might have been tea once. Someone else walks in behind you. A tall man with a beard like a mountain and a coat that's entirely too long for this weather. He slaps the counter. "Clara," he says. "My chickens are dead again." She doesn't flinch. "Stop feeding them Applejack." He grunts and sits next to you. You exchange tired nods. "First time in town?" he asks. "Is it that obvious?" He chuckles. "You're sweating like a priest in a poker den." You wipe your forehead with a napkin that immediately becomes a relic. He leans in. "Best tip I can give you? Wet your socks." You blink. "What?" "Wet lem. Soak lem in the trough. Put lem back on. Helps with the heat." You consider this. He seems sincere. Or delirious. But really, what do you have to lose? You thank Clara, who grunts, and step outside again, where the sun greets you like a slap. You find the less offensive of the two troughs. Pull off your boots. Dip your socks in. They squish audibly. You slide them back on. It's disgusting. But after a few steps, you feel it. Relief. Slight. Temporary. But real. You look up at the sky again. Still judging. Still blue. But now you're a bit more ready. You walk past the saloon. Past the blacksmith. Past Myrtle, who seems to remember you and turns her head to avoid eye contact. You pass a man holding an umbrella made of what appears to be chicken feathers. He nods. Too much sun makes your mind funny, he warns. You're starting to believe him. Finally, you return to the shady side of the schoolhouse, where a bench sits half in shadow. You sit. You breathe. Your socks squish. A breeze picks up. It's warm. But not hot. A small mercy. Your face feels like it's made of sand. Your lips are dry. Your shirt has developed new patterns in sweat. But for the first time since sunrise, you feel a moment of peace. Just long enough for a crow to land next to you and steal your hat. Because of course. You leap to your feet, socks squishing defiantly in your boots, as the crow, black, bold, and smug, flaps awkwardly away with your hat gripped in its beak like a prize. The bird isn't fast. It isn't even especially graceful. But it knows exactly what it's doing. It lands on the schoolhouse roof, perches just out of reach, and starts pecking at the brim like it might contain corn. You raise a finger. Don't you dare. The crow tilts its head, cocks one beady eye at you, and proceeds to drag your poor sweat-drenched hat toward a nesting hole in the eaves. You sigh. You know you've lost this round. The schoolteacher pokes her head out the door, looks at you, then at the crow. That's Edgar, she says. He does that. You offer a helpless gesture. Can I get it back? She shrugs. Maybe in spring, when the nestlings grow out of it. And then she disappears back inside without another word. You stand there for a moment, hands on your hips, bareheaded and exhausted, contemplating whether you've actually gone slightly insane. You just got mugged. By a bird. You drag yourself away from the crime scene, cheeks burning from heat and indignity, and wander the town looking like a failed deputy. The absence of your hat invites commentary. Son got your hat too, says an old man from his porch. Should have tied it down, someone else mutters. Bet Myrtle's laughing at you right now, says the stable boy, grinning. You wave them all off. Pride isn't your priority anymore. Survival is. So you walk toward a promising-smelling cart at the end of the main street, steam rising off it, the faint tang of onions and grease in the air. A small, round woman with a face like a pie and arms like tree trunks is ladling something from a large iron pot. Lunch, she asks, already filling a bowl. You don't protest. She hands it over, an oddly viscous stew, a chunk of something unidentifiable floating in the center, and a dry heel of bread attached to the side like an afterthought. You take a tentative sniff. It doesn't smell bad, exactly. Just enthusiastic. You sit on an overturned crate and begin eating slowly. The stew is hot, salty, and deeply confusing. You think there's meat in it. Probably. Something chewy, with the consistency of rubber and the flavor of boot. Is this boot stew? Is that a thing? Historians still argue about the variety of meat consumed by settlers. Some records mention squirrel, jackrabbit, prairie dog. Others, less reliable, more disturbing, suggest that anything not nailed down and still moving was fair game. You try not to dwell on this as you chew. You ask the woman what it is. She smiles warmly. Don't ask. Excellent. A fly circles your bowl. You swat at it lazily, but it's too smart for you. You and the fly are now locked in a battle of reflexes, and you're not sure who's winning. By the time you finish the stew, or surrender, you realize your stomach has entered a new stage of cautious negotiation. It's no longer protesting, but it has made clear that further surprises will not be tolerated. You lean back, stretch, and feel every sore muscle remind you of earlier mistakes, barn roofs, tar, horses, socks. And then, without warning, someone shouts your name. You freeze. No one should know your name here. But then you realize, they don't. They're shouting a name. It just happens to sound like yours. Jonas echoes down the road. A man comes barreling toward you from the blacksmith's, red-faced and panting. Where is he? Where's Jonas? You point in a random direction. He runs off that way, yelling, You're dead, Jonas. You hear me? Dead. The pie-armed stew lady tuts and wipes her ladle. That's the third dead Jonas this week. You nod, filing that away as yet another reason to keep moving. You wander away from the cart, stomach full of mystery, body sweating more efficiently than ever. You pass the sheriff's office again. He's asleep in a chair outside, hat pulled over his face, revolver loosely holstered. A small sign rests on his chest, wake only for crimes or snakes. You don't wake him. Even though you're pretty sure a hat theft by crow might qualify. You continue walking, past homes with wind chimes made from cutlery, past a dog drinking out of what used to be a spittoon, past an old woman knitting what looks like a single, never-ending scarf. Eventually, you reach the outer edge of town. The fields stretch outward, yellow and brown, dotted with spiky plants, the occasional tumbleweed rolling with purpose. It's quiet out here. Hot, but less crowded. You sit on a fence rail and let your legs dangle. A prairie wind picks up, warm but steady. You can feel the grit of dust on your teeth. There's a strange peace in this moment. The kind that comes after your dignity has been slowly, thoroughly dismantled by a combination of livestock, crow-based crime, and uncooperative lunch. And then something moves in the grass nearby. You freeze. Slowly turn your head. There's a rustling, followed by the unmistakable shkkkk of something slithering. Oh no. It's a snake. Not a big one. Not venomous looking. But a snake nonetheless. And it has noticed you. You stand up quickly. Too quickly. You lose your balance and fall backward off the fence, landing in a pile of brittle weeds and, possibly, a gopher nest. The snake slithers past you like you weren't even worth the warning rattle. Which, somehow, feels worse than being attacked. You lay there for a moment, staring at the sky, arms splayed, dust rising around you. From somewhere nearby, a voice calls out, You all right? You give a thumbs up. Snake. Yup. Did it get you? Nope. Well, that's your win for the day, then. You sit up slowly. Your elbow is scratched, your pride is definitely still missing, but your heart rate is leveling out. Probably. You pick a weed from your boot and begin the slow walk back into town. Every part of your body groans. You pass a wagon whose front wheel has just fallen off mid-turn. The driver doesn't even react, just sighs and lights a pipe. You pass a group of teenagers practicing lasso throws on each other. One of them is tied to a post, grinning proudly. And you pass Clara again, now sitting on her front porch with a cup of something steaming. She nods. You look like you've been cooked. You nod back. Medium well. She smiles. You'll last longer than I thought. High praise. Maybe. But even now, with heat boiling your thoughts and your knees trying to quit their job, you're starting to feel it, the rhythm of the place. The rules. The silent agreements between people and land and sky. The Wild West doesn't welcome you. It dares you. And so far, you're still standing. You've officially entered the delirious acceptance phase of Wild West survival. Your clothes are stiff with sweat and dust, your lips feel like two small strips of jerky, and your socks, still soggy, squish with every step like they're reminding you who's in charge now. You've survived suspicious meals, crow crime, uncooperative horses, and accidental snake proximity. And just when you think things might settle down into a sleepy afternoon rhythm, you hear the one sound you really don't want to hear. A slow, deliberate click behind you. You freeze. Then a voice, low, gravelly, and a little too calm, drawls, "I don't take kindly to jokes, stranger." You turn around slowly. Behind you stands a man with boots too clean and a hat too pointy. He's holding a pistol in one hand, and in the other, a playing card. A jack of spades. "That was my hand you laughed at this morning," he says. Your brain scrambles to assemble memories. The poker table. The laughter. The peanuts. Hank. This is not Hank. You blink. "I think you've got the wrong guy." He smiles the kind of smile that says, "I hear words, but I prefer threats." "You calling me a liar?" "Nope," you say quickly. Just a little confused. The man steps forward. "You mocked me in front of folks." "Nobody mocks me in front of folks." You glance around. Several townspeople are definitely watching. None look inclined to intervene. Historians still debate how often duels actually occurred in frontier towns. The famous high noon standoff was more myth than common practice. But that didn't stop folks from issuing challenges over poker games, spilled drinks, or accidentally stepping on someone's shadow. And now you're about to become a statistic. "I don't want any trouble," you say, hands raised. The man scowls. "Trouble found you anyway." A long, awkward pause. Then a whistle. A voice rings out, "Jed! Quit scaring the stranger. You're not even loaded." A small woman steps out from behind a watering barrel, arms crossed. "Your gun's been empty since Tuesday." Jed lowers the weapon with theatrical slowness, then mutters, "Ruin into my moment, ma." She walks over, grabs the pistol, and swats him on the back of the head. "Go help your uncle fix the roof." Jed glares at you one last time, more embarrassed than dangerous now, and sulks off. You exhale like you've just been crushed by a piano. The woman turns to you. "Sorry about that." He gets theatrical when it's hot. You nod, pulse slowly returning to normal. "It's very hot. Try being his mother." She walks off without further explanation, leaving you standing in the dust, grateful to be shot. You find your way back to the saloon, your stomach growling for the third time in an hour. Not hunger, more like the digestive equivalent of a protest march. The memory of the stew lingers unpleasantly. Inside, the room is cooler. Shaded. A few customers lounge in corners, playing cards, drinking, whispering. The piano player is half-heartedly tapping out a tune that sounds like it's trying to die peacefully. You sit at the bar. The barkeep from earlier gives you a once-over. "Did you get robbed by the sun?" she asks. "Almost got shot," you reply. She shrugs. "Afternoon's young." You sip the watery beer she slides over. It's warm, but not offensive. And it doesn't contain beans, so that's a win. You look around and notice a wanted poster tacked to the far wall. A sepia-toned man stares blankly from under a wide brim. The reward, $5. His crime? Disturbing livestock and making unwelcome jokes. You think about Jed. Might be a crowded category. After a few sips, you leave the bar and head outside, where the sun is finally beginning its long, slow tilt toward the horizon. The town is quieter now. Even the animals have found shade, cows lounging near the well, chickens nesting under porches, one cat somehow sleeping on top of the general store sign. And that's when it hits you. The sound. Low. Drawn out. Like someone dragging a shovel through dry gravel. It's coming from behind the jail. You follow the noise, cautiously. Rounding the corner, you see two men, one with a shovel, one with a bucket, digging what appears to be a very shallow trench. You make eye contact with the bucket guy. "You helping?" he asks. "With what?" Drainage, he says. Keeps the cells from flooding when it rains. You look up at the sky. Not a cloud in sight. Hasn't rained since March, he adds. But it might. And so, naturally, you're handed a second shovel. The work is slow. Dry earth, packed hard like a promise. Every time you lift the shovel, your spine complains, and your hands, still raw from earlier, begin to blister again. But strangely, it's not so bad. The two men are quiet but not unfriendly. One hums a tune. The other makes the occasional joke about how digging teaches patience and back pain in equal parts. By the time the trench is a respectable foot deep, the sun is leaning westward, casting long shadows and tinting everything golden. You sit on the edge of the ditch, wiping sweat with a sleeve that gave up being clean hours ago. One of the men offers you a piece of jerky. You chew. Slowly. It's tough enough to qualify as a minor challenge. But it tastes like salt and meat and something resembling accomplishment. Where you from? The bucket guy asks. You answer. He nods like he didn't really care but was being polite. You're marking it, though, he says. Most city folk don't last this long. Thanks, you reply, mouth still half full of jerky. He shrugs. We'll see how you do at night. You blink. What happens at night? He doesn't answer. Just pats your shoulder and walks off. Great. You trudge back to the main street. People are lighting lanterns now, placing them on porches, hanging them from crooked hooks. A horse snorts. A woman hums a lullaby to a baby. Even the crows seem to be winding down for the day. You sit on a bench near the general store, watching the glow settle over the town. And then you hear the unmistakable sound of harmonica. Distant, slightly off-key, slow. Somewhere nearby, someone settling in for the evening by playing what might be the world's most mournful rendition of O Susanna. You close your eyes. The air smells of lantern oil and dry grass. The world feels like it's wrapped in flannel. Your muscles ache. Your socks are still damp. You have no hat. You almost got shot over a card game you didn't play. And your lunch might still be moving. But for the first time all day, you feel a little more like you belong. At least until tomorrow. The harmonica continues its slow, wheezing lament as twilight wraps the town in denim blue shadows. You sit there on the bench, soaking it all in, tired beyond words, your brain starting to hum like a lantern with too little oil. For a moment, the Wild West doesn't feel hostile. Just quiet. Settled. Like it's letting you catch your breath before the next insult. And then your stomach makes a sound. A sharp, surprised gurgle that can only mean one thing: it's time for dinner. You rise, knees cracking like a creaky porch swing, and head toward the flickering lanterns glowing in the windows of Clara's kitchen. Smoke curls out from the chimney. Something in there is cooking, something thick and aromatic and definitely not vegetarian. You step inside to find Clara at her stove, apron streaked with a new constellation of stains, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back with what looks like a bootlace. She glances over her shoulder. You eating again? She asks. Regretfully, yes. She ladles something from a pot into a shallow bowl. Stew. You don't ask what kind. She doesn't tell. You sit at the same crooked table, the one with the sticky spot you've learned to avoid with your left elbow. The room smells like meat, wood smoke, and something faintly sweet, molasses, maybe, or burnt sugar. You lift the spoon. The stew is dark brown, thick as wet cement, and steaming ominously. You blow on it, take a tentative sip, and brace for betrayal. But it's not bad. Hearty. Salty. The meat is tender. The potatoes are soft. There's even a whisper of something herby, sage, maybe, or wild thyme. You take another bite, cautiously optimistic. Clara notices. Don't get used to it, she says. This ain't a hotel. You nod, mouthful. The door creaks open behind you. A man steps in, tall and lanky, carrying a folded newspaper under one arm and a damp-looking handkerchief in the other. He sits at the far table and removes his hat. You glance over. His hair is white, but his face is youngish, like he's lived backward. Clara pours him stew without asking. "News," she says. He nods. Another train held up east of Carson. Bandits got away with payroll and pickles. "Pickles," you repeat, unable to help yourself. He shrugs. "Weren't no gold on board. Took what they could." You finish your stew slowly, chewing thoughtfully, wondering what kind of outlaw looks at a barrel of pickles and thinks, "Yeah, this is the score of a lifetime." Outside, the sky fades from blue to navy, and the stars begin to show, bright, clean, sharp as nails in a board. You thank Clara with a nod and step out into the cooling night. You've survived the heat. The food. The poker table. Even a duel that wasn't. But now comes the part no one warns you about, night in the Wild West. There's no electricity. Just lanterns flickering on porches, candles burning behind crooked shutters, and the moon hanging low and lazy. It's beautiful. And deeply unnerving. Because in the dark, everything feels a little too quiet. Too slow. And too full of possibility. You wander toward the edge of town, where the street lamps thin and the sounds of life dim into chirping insects and far-off howls. You pass the church, still empty, doors creaking slightly in the wind, and the schoolhouse, dark except for a candle flickering in one corner window. The teacher must live upstairs. You hear something rustle near a wagon. You stop. Listen. It's gone. You keep walking. A few houses have their windows open, yellow rectangles of soft light glowing out into the night. You catch snippets of conversation, laughter, the clink of dishes. Someone is singing a lullaby, slowly, tenderly, off-key. It almost feels cozy. Then you turn the corner and remember what Clara said earlier, don't go near the outhouse after dark. You didn't ask why at the time. You're starting to wish you had. Because there, standing between you and the creaky little shack at the far end of the yard, is a raccoon. A large raccoon. Its eyes catch the lantern light like twin beads of malice. It doesn't move. Just stares at you, expression unreadable, like it's guarding something precious or deeply personal. You take a cautious step forward. It twitches. You stop. You consider your options. There are not many. This, apparently, is the final test. Can you survive the Wild West and a passive-aggressive trash panda? You back away slowly. There's another outhouse down by the livery. Less convenient, more mosquito-prone, but raccoon-free, for now. You head that way, stepping carefully over dry patches of grass and wooden planks that creak with every step. The second outhouse is less a building and more a suggestion of one. 3 walls, a crooked door, and something buzzing ominously nearby. You go in. You survive it. Just barely. You emerge changed. Back in town, the saloon is quieter now. A few stragglers remain, leaning on tables, cards abandoned, stories being half told to people too tired to care. You pass by and hear someone say, and then she pulled the knife right out of the pie, followed by sleepy laughter. You make your way toward the bunkhouse, the shared sleeping quarters for newcomers, travelers, and anyone who hasn't yet earned a room to themselves. You're in the last category. Inside, it smells like unwashed socks and wood polish. Several narrow beds line the walls. One is taken up by a man snoring so loudly you can feel it in your teeth. Another holds a pile of blankets and a harmonica that may or may not be haunted. You claim the cot nearest the window and sit down, exhaling hard. The mattress is a sack of straw wrapped in something that might once have been linen. It crunches. There's something pokey in the middle. You lie back anyway, boots off, arms folded behind your head. The window offers a view of the stars, more stars than you've ever seen in your life. The sky is alive with them, flickering in clusters, whispering of cold air and vast distances. Outside, coyotes howl. Horses whinny. Somewhere, a door slams. A dog barks. Then silence again. Your eyes grow heavy. You think about the stew. The shovel. The snake. The shovel again. The harmonica. You wonder if you'll wake up tomorrow in one piece. If Myrtle the horse will forgive you. If the raccoon is still watching. And then you drift. Not to sleep exactly, but to that in-between space where sounds become soft and time folds in on itself like a tired accordion. The Wild West isn't trying to kill you anymore. Just lull you into staying. You wake before the sun. Not because you want to, of course. No, your body wakes you because something just crawled across your foot. You freeze. Don't scream. Don't move. Just slowly raise your head and peer down at the end of the cot, where a large brown insect, equal parts antenna and audacity, is making its way across your blanket like it owns the deed to the place. You hold your breath. The bug pauses. Cleans its face. Then, without ceremony, it skitters down the side and disappears into the floorboards. You exhale, wide-eyed and instantly more awake than any coffee could achieve. This is not how people should greet the day, but here in the Wild West, it counts as a gentle alarm. The room is still dark. A soft silver light slips through the warped wooden window frame, and outside, the sounds of early morning are just beginning. A rooster clears its throat. A horse shuffles. Somewhere, someone sneezes with enough force to startle a pigeon. You sit up slowly. Your back cracks. Your knees ache. Your hair, what's left of it after the crow incident, feels like it's been rubbed with hay and forgotten dreams. Around you, the other bunkhouse dwellers are stirring. One man mutters in his sleep, something about pickaxes and gravy. Another rolls over and groans like a haunted door. You lace up your boots, still damp from yesterday's sock-drenching adventure, and quietly make your way outside. The dawn air is sharp, crisp, and cool in a way that almost feels like forgiveness. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with dust-free oxygen for the first time in, well, a long time. The sky above is streaked with soft pink and lavender, a watercolor of calm. You could almost believe things might be easy today. But you know better. You head toward the pump near the livery stable. The handle groans in protest, but with some effort, water splashes into the tin basin below. You splash your face. The cold shocks you back into your body, and you wipe your face dry on your sleeve, which is only slightly cleaner than the pump handle itself. The stable boy is already up, brushing Myrtle, who glances at you like she still hasn't forgiven you for yesterday. She's been good this morning, the boy says. Didn't even bite the lantern this time. You nod, unsure if that's a compliment. Today's rail shipment's coming in, he continues. That means everyone's acting busy. He's right. There's a strange tension in the air now, like the town is preparing for a guest who might judge the quality of their beans. Shopkeepers are sweeping porches. The blacksmith's already banging metal into submission. Even Clara is out back, organizing crates of what you sincerely hope is food and not another mystery stew shipment. You walk to the general store, figuring you might offer to help unload whatever's arriving. It might earn you a coin. Or a slice of not yesterday's bread. The store owner, a wiry woman with a braid so tight it could slice wire, is already outside with a clipboard and a squint. She eyes you like a rusty shovel. You got strong arms. They've been through some things, you say diplomatically. Good enough. You'll be on barrel duty. She jerks a thumb toward the dusty track that runs parallel to the dry creek bed, the so-called railroad. It's not a real rail line, not yet. Just a path where a mule-drawn supply cart lumbers into town every few days, pretending to be a train with none of the speed or grandeur. Sure enough, off in the distance, a cart appears. 2 mules. 1 driver. 1 bouncing barrel. You head out to meet it, boots crunching gravel. The driver, a man who looks like he's been sneezing dust since birth, nods at you as you approach. Don't touch the top barrel, he says. It's got pickled eggs and a bad attitude. You help unload anyway. Bags of flour. Rolls of fabric. 2 buckets of nails. A crate labeled caution, molasses. Another crate simply says tools, with a question mark that does not inspire confidence. And, of course, the top barrel, the infamous one. It sloshes menacingly when you walk by. Once everything's unloaded and organized on the wooden pallet near the store, you wipe your hands on your trousers and look back at the driver. What's the weirdest thing you've ever delivered, you ask? He scratches his chin. Once hauled a coffin full of ferrets. You blink. Alive? He doesn't answer. You walk away. The town's already gathering around the new goods. Someone's buying nails. Someone else is arguing over flour prices. A child is trying to climb into the pickled egg barrel. The store owner slaps his hand away with her clipboard. You decide to stroll down toward the edge of town again, past the garden patch and the goat that keeps trying to eat its own rope. The air is still cool, but the sun is starting to climb. Another scorcher on the way. As you pass the schoolhouse, the teacher is chalking something onto the slate board hanging outside. Today's lesson, gravity is not optional. Fair enough. You turn back toward town and nearly collide with the sheriff. He's carrying a large sack and a bucket. You take a step back. Morning, he says. Morning. You busy? You hesitate. Depends. He squints. Good. Need help with the jail roof. Some fool let chickens roost up there. Why were there chickens on the roof? He shrugs. Same reason there's a goat in the bank vault. Wes doesn't ask questions. You follow him to the jail, where a rickety ladder leans against the front corner. The roof is, indeed, covered in straw and feathers and the occasional egg. The sheriff sets the bucket down and grunts, "Start clearing it off. I'll pay you in coffee and suspicion." You climb up, again, knees groaning. The roof creaks under your weight. There are at least 3 chickens up here, one of which gives you a very pointed glare, like you're trespassing on her property. You begin clearing straw, tossing it into the bucket below. One chicken hops off the edge and flutters down safely. The other 2 are more stubborn. You try reasoning with them. They ignore you. Eventually, you use your hat, your spare hat, a loaner from the bunkhouse that smells like mustard and candle wax, to shoo them away. They descend in a flurry of feathers and clucks. The roof is clear. You sit there for a moment, catching your breath, looking out over the town from this elevated perch. The horizon stretches forever, miles of dusty gold and brush, the occasional vulture circling high. Below, the town churns on, people bickering, children yelling, someone yelling back. And you're still here. No longer just a greenhorn with blistered hands and a target on your back. Now you're a little more part of things. Not trusted, maybe, but tolerated. Which, in the Wild West, is practically affection. You climb down the ladder, nod at the sheriff, and accept the cup of coffee he hands you. It's bitter and probably 80% grit. You drink it anyway. Then you sit beside the jail, sip again, and stare off into the sun-baked middle distance like you've got stories to tell. Because maybe, just maybe, you do. By mid-morning, the town is beginning to slow again, just a bit. The supply cart's gone, its mules now enjoying an extended snack break beside the well, and most folks have returned to their routines, which include hammering, yelling, and ignoring any request to form an orderly line. You take one last sip of the sheriff's gravel-textured coffee, then stand and stretch, your back cracking like an old map being unfolded. Your arms ache from chicken eviction, your palms are raw from ladder splinters, and your soul still hasn't recovered from the pickled egg barrel's slashy threats. And then it happens. A door bursts open. From Clara's. You duck, out of sheer habit, as a large man comes tumbling out, literally tumbling, onto the dusty street, landing face first with a grunt and a soft "oof." A rolling pin clatters behind him. Clara steps out onto the porch, apron flapping in the breeze, hair loose from its usual bootlace knot. "I told you," she growls, "this ain't a bakery. Now git." The man stumbles to his feet, brushing dirt off his suspenders and blinking in confusion. But you said pies were coming. I said the flies were coming, and you were attracting 'em. He slinks off, muttering, and you, unwisely, make eye contact with Clara. She huffs, wipes her hands, and heads back inside. You follow, cautiously, because curiosity is stronger than common sense, and you'd like to know what exactly it is she does serve at this place besides anger and beans. Inside, it smells like cinnamon and threat. Clara's rearranging jars on a high shelf. Pickled something or other, dried herbs, a jar labeled simply don't. You clear your throat. She glances over. If you're asking for pie, you'll get slapped. No pie, you assure her. Just breakfast. She nods once. You'll eat what I've got. You nod back. That sounds terrifying. Thank you. She hands you a plate with something fried, something flat, and something round. The round thing is suspiciously bouncy. You sit down and dig in, deciding not to ask questions. The flat thing is crisp and salty. The fried thing is probably egg adjacent. The round thing? You chew it, slowly, and realize it's not food so much as texture. It's not unpleasant, just unfamiliar, like eating an old rubber boot that's been boiled in maple syrup and forgiveness. Clara watches you from behind the counter like a hawk watching a hamster try to solve a puzzle. When you finish, she nods once and says, "You'll live." Which is honestly the nicest thing anyone said to you all week. Outside, the town is stirring again. You step into the warm sun, stretching your limbs and wondering what trial awaits next. You don't have to wait long. A boy, freckled, barefoot, and holding a note clutched tightly in his fist, runs up to you, panting. "You're the helper fella, right?" he wheezes. You blink. "Maybe." He hands you the note. It's scribbled in heavy pencil. "Need hands at the washing station. Bring soap. Don't be weird. Mavis." Below that, in smaller print, last helper tried to court the laundry line. His band. You look up. "Where's Mavis?" The boy points toward the river bend beyond the livery. "She's got the cleanest pants in 5 counties. Don't mess up." You head that way, unsure what exactly you've signed up for. The walk is longer than expected, past the stables, beyond the last fences, into a sun-drenched stretch of land that actually has green things growing. Shocking. Real grass, scrubby trees, even some flowers swaying lazily in the breeze. Down by the water, you see her, Mavis. Tall, broad-shouldered, sleeves rolled, skirt hitched just below the knees as she wrings out a shirt like she's punishing it for unpaid debts. A few other women work nearby, scrubbing, rinsing, hanging. Their hands move fast. Efficient. You slow your approach. You the new one. Mavis barks without looking. You nod. Got soap? You hesitate. I thought it'd be here. She grunts. Fine. Make yourself useful. That pile there. She points to a stack of clothes so large it might qualify as a minor geological formation. You roll up your sleeves. Washing clothes in the Wild West is less a task and more a lifestyle. First, you soak them in river water, cold and slightly muddy. Then you scrub them on a washboard that may as well be made of shark teeth. Then you rinse, wring, and hang them to dry while praying the wind doesn't carry them into a cactus. You scrape, you lather, you wring. You get wet. You splash yourself. You learn that old denim can hold approximately a gallon of water per leg. Mavis watches. Occasionally corrects. Sometimes grunts in approval, which you learn is the equivalent of applause. Don't hang it that way, she warns once. Unless you want lopsided trousers. They'll shame you forever. You nod, make adjustments, hang the trousers with reverence. Halfway through, one of the other women, Millie, leans over and says, "You're better than the last guy." What happened to him, you ask? He said the soap tasted funny. It's best not to ask follow-ups. By the time you've washed what feels like half the town's wardrobe, your hands are wrinkled, your arms are sore, and your shirt is wetter than most of the clothes you've hung. But the breeze is cool. The sun is friendlier here. There's laughter, gentle teasing, even a song or two. It's hard work. But it feels human. Mavis nods once as you hang the final shirt. You can come back tomorrow, she says. Maybe. High praise. You head back into town, shirt drying as you walk. You pass Clara's again, where someone is being politely removed via broom. You pass the schoolhouse, where a new lesson is written, what's a preposition, and why do we care? You pass Myrtle, who has found a new low-effort hobby, glaring at a barrel. You pass the sheriff's office, where the sign now reads The Wake. Barely. Eventually, you reach your favorite bench, now partially shaded by a sagging awning. You sit. Sigh. Your hands still smell like soap and river mud. Your legs are buzzing from the work. Your boots squish slightly from one misplaced step. And for once, nothing's going wrong. Then the harmonica starts up again. The same off-key, wandering tune, floating through the dusk like a ghost with a hobby. And you smile. Because somehow, that sad little tune means you've made it through another Wild West day. Barely. The harmonica drifts on the evening air like it's just trying to mind its business, but it still hits a sour note every third breath. You lean back on the bench, letting the last warmth of the day settle into your shoulders, when a voice from behind cuts through the melody like a whip crack. Hey! You turn slowly. There's a woman standing there, arms crossed, hat low over her eyes, and the kind of posture that says she doesn't want anything from you, except maybe a confession. You the one who walked into Miss Tilly's this morning thinking it was a bakery. You blink. Miss Tilly's. She steps into the light. Long braid. Dust-covered boots. Leather gloves with the fingers cut out. And a sawed-off shotgun slung casually over one shoulder like it's just part of her outfit. That's the brothel, she says. You remember the red curtains. The lace-trimmed windows. The smell of lilac and smoke. I thought I smelled cinnamon rolls, you say. She smirks. You and 4 other confused travelers this week. Was there a sign? There's a shoe nailed to the door. You blink. That doesn't really help. She shrugs. Not our problem. Then, for a terrifying moment, she just keeps staring at you. Name's Birdie, she finally says. I run things over there. You nod, as if that's a normal thing to hear from a woman with a shotgun and the vibe of a boss battle. She eyes you again. You cause trouble. Just confusion, you say honestly. She nods once, then turns on her heel and walks off down the street, coat flapping, gun glinting in the last light like punctuation on a sentence you'll never fully understand. You exhale. That's enough excitement for one evening. But fate, as always, disagrees. Because as you're standing there, still recovering from your accidental brothel faux pas, a voice calls out from the end of the street. Loud. Drawling. Stranger. You turn. It's Hank. Yes, that Hank. The card shark from the saloon. He's standing outside the general store now, arms crossed, mustache bristling in the wind. Reckon we've got unfinished business, he says. You take a step back. Someone behind you mutters, oh boy. Here it comes. You try diplomacy. Look, Hank. I didn't mean to. Don't matter, he interrupts. You embarrass me. My pride's worth more than your excuses. You glance around. People are watching from porches now. Someone's lighting a lantern. A child ducks behind a barrel, clearly excited. I didn't even play a card, you protest. Hank steps closer. That's what makes it worse. You sigh. What exactly do you want? A duel? Of course. Historians still argue about the actual frequency and rules of Wild West duels. Some say they were rare and highly ritualized. Others suggest it was often more about posturing and reputation than actual shooting. Either way, right now, your odds of walking away clean are, let's say, historically uncertain. You raise both hands. I don't even own a gun. Hank smiles. Ain't my fault. The sheriff appears on the boardwalk, sipping from a chipped mug and clearly not intending to intervene. Keep it civil, he says, and goes back inside. You consider fleeing. Running full tilt down the street, leaping over a hitching post, disappearing into the hills. But your legs are tired. And you just washed laundry all day. And besides, this is probably one of those earn the town's respect moments. You swallow. All right, you say. Let's do this. A gasp. A few oohs. Someone bets a button. The street clears out like it's rehearsed. You and Hank face each other across the main drag, 20 paces apart. He flexes his fingers. You twitch yours, unsure what exactly you're supposed to be doing. Then someone tosses something. Not a gun. A tin cup. It lands between you with a thunk. You both look down. Figured we'd do the gentleman's duel, Hank says. First one to spill the other's drink loses. A duel of beverages? He hands you a cup. Someone fills it with beer. Cold. Frothy. Surprisingly decent smelling. You realize this is less about killing and more about proving your wrist is steadier than his. Or maybe it's just about not spilling beer. All right, someone says. 3 steps forward, drink in hand, no lids. Go. You take your first step. Your hand is already trembling. Not fear, just fatigue, and the knowledge that your center of gravity is somewhere around your ankles. Second step. Hank doesn't blink. His drink is perfectly still. Third step. You wobble. So does your drink. But somehow, it stays in the cup. You stand, now only 5 feet from Hank, both of you holding full tin cups, both waiting for the other to blink, twitch, sneeze, collapse. A breeze rolls through. Your cup trembles. Then Hank smirks. A fly lands on his eyebrow. And he flinches. Beer spills. Just a drop. But enough. The crowd erupts in quiet clapping, the Wild West version of a standing ovation. Someone mutters, new record. 3 steps. 1 fly. Hank looks down at his drink. Then up at you. He nods once. Fair's fair. Then he walks off. Just like that. You exhale and take a sip of your still mostly full drink. It tastes like lukewarm victory. As the onlookers drift away, you realize something has shifted. You're not invisible anymore. A few nods come your way. A couple of friendly smirks. One man slaps your shoulder with enough force to knock the air from your lungs. But it's welcoming. Kind of. You return to your bench. The harmonica plays on. The stars peek through above. Somewhere down the road, Myrtle snorts softly, probably judging you. And you realize something astonishing. You've lasted another day. You were nearly mistaken for a bakery burglar. Challenged to a beverage duel. Threatened by a woman with a shotgun and a talent for metaphor. And yet, here you are. Upright. Slightly sticky. Marginally respected. You raise your tin cup to the sky. To the Wild West. The weirdest sleepover you never signed up for. You wake up face down in a blanket that smells like someone used it to mop a saloon floor, then folded it neatly and offered it to a guest. For a second, you forget where you are. You think, maybe I dreamed the harmonica duel. But then your elbow lands squarely on a harmonica left on the floor beside your cot. It groans. So do you. You sit up slowly. It's still dark, just the faintest pre-dawn glow peeking through the warped window frame. Someone nearby is snoring with operatic commitment. Your back feels like it's been kneaded by a vengeful piano tuner. And yet, somehow, you're not miserable. You're tired, sore, and vaguely humiliated, but not miserable. That feels like a win. You creep out of the bunkhouse, boots in hand, and slip into the crisp morning air. You sit on the porch steps and pull your boots on, one at a time, letting the silence stretch. Until you realize something's missing. The harmonica. No distant wheezing. No sad rendition of Home on the Range floating through the air like a sigh. Peace. Which, naturally, means something bad is coming. As the sky lightens and the town stirs, you decide to do the unthinkable, act like a model citizen. No running from crows. No unsolicited card games. No pickled egg barrels. So you head toward the sheriff's office. He's on the porch, boots up, sipping something dark from his chipped mug. "Morning," you say. He grunts. "Didn't expect you'd still be around." "Me neither." He gestures to the stool beside him. You sit. "There's a job," he says after a minute. "Store got robbed last night." You blink. "Robbed?" "Sorta," he says. "They stole 3 spools of thread, a shovel head, and 2 buttons. We're not exactly talking the Jesse James." You nod. "But still a crime." He raises an eyebrow. "Technically." He hands you a slip of paper. "Here's the list. See if you can track it down. You've got the face for casual suspicion." You don't know what that means, but you take it as a compliment. So your day begins with a mission: find the missing thread, buttons, and a shovel head. It's like a scavenger hunt, but the prize is unclear and may involve angry chickens. First stop, the general store. The owner, Miss Reader, is already sweeping the porch like it insulted her personally. She eyes you as you approach. "Sheriff send you?" "Yes, looking for the stolen." She cuts you off. "I already know who did it." You blink. You do. Lottie Miller's boy. Has sticky fingers and the morals of a tired raccoon. Has he done this before? Stole a spoon once. Buried it in the cactus patch. Claimed he was teaching it to dig. Logical. Check their place down by the windmill. But don't step on the dog. It bites. You walk toward the windmill, which creaks lazily in the morning breeze. Lottie's shack sits beside it, a pile of patched wood and slanted windows, surrounded by laundry lines and at least one goat that looks like it pays rent. You knock. A boy opens the door. Freckled. Suspicious. Barefoot. Thread clinging to his sleeve like guilt. "Morning," you say. You wouldn't happen to know anything about. "I ain't got no buttons," he says instantly. You blink. Didn't ask about buttons. He narrows his eyes. "Then you're the law." "I'm barely a person," you say. "Good," he says, and slams the door. You hear shuffling. Muttered words. The creak of a floorboard. Then, after a long moment, the door creaks open again. A small burlap bag is shoved into your arms. No apology. No explanation. Just the goods. You open it. Buttons. Thread. One very rusty shovel head. Mission complete. You return to the sheriff, who glances inside the bag, shrugs, and says, "Reed'll be happy. She hates that boy." Then he nods at you. You're doing all right. 2 words. No medal. But it means something. As the sun climbs, you wander through town, no particular aim, just enjoying the novelty of not being actively judged or publicly humiliated. You help a man upright a tip barrel. You hold a ladder for a woman fixing a crooked sign. You even pet a dog that doesn't bite you. But of course, you push your luck. Because later that afternoon, while passing the town's only bathhouse, a glorified shack with steam puffing from its roof, you hear shouting. "I told you! That's my soap!" Two men burst out, both wrapped in towels, both wet, both furious. You step back. Way back. One of them points a dripping finger. He's a thief and a lather hog. The other glares. You don't own lavender? The sheriff arrives moments later, sipping the same mug of eternal coffee, and says, "You wanna sort this or should I dunk you both?" They stop. Huff. Grumble. Retreat back inside. He turns to you. Bathhouse'll do that to folks. Get clean, start feeling righteous. Noted. You wander on, past Myrtle, still unimpressed, past Clara's, where the soup smells like hope and regret, past the schoolhouse, where a child has drawn a very unflattering picture of you in chalk on the side wall. You wave anyway. And then you see it. The bank. Not much of one. 2 windows. A single safe. A sign that reads "Please knock," loudly. And standing outside is a goat. Not just any goat. The goat. From the Windmill House. It stares at you, then slowly walks up the steps and nudges the door. The banker opens it, sees the goat, and sighs. You again? The goat enters. You watch it walk straight to the back, hop up onto a bench, and lie down like it's expecting a loan. The banker looks at you. He's got better credit than half this town. Then he closes the door. You stand there, unsure what to do with any of this. Eventually, you make your way back to the bunkhouse. The sun is slipping again, the light turning gold, the shadows stretching long and slow. You sit on the bench outside. Your feet ache. Your hands are stained with dust, soap, and maybe molasses. But the harmonica hasn't played all day. Peace. Then, softly, from somewhere near the livery, a single, sad note. Just one. Then silence. You sigh. Everything's back to normal. You're starting to believe that this town has a secret schedule: dust by dawn, conflict by noon, and complete surrealism by late afternoon. After the harmonica single, ghostly note, things went quiet again. Not peaceful, just resting before whatever happens next. And as it turns out, what happens next is the prairie. You didn't plan to go there. But plans aren't a thing here. Not really. You were just trying to take the long way around to avoid the goat-guarded bank when you passed by the edge of town and saw a woman standing beside a fence post, staring out into the distance. She turned to you. You ever seen a dust devil try to eat a cow? You paused. Is that a metaphor? She squinted. No. And that's how you ended up following someone named Tess out past the last row of houses, into a stretch of land that doesn't even try to be welcoming. Just tall grass, thorny bushes, and flat, dry earth cracked like the skin on your knuckles. She walks fast. Carries a shotgun slung casually over one shoulder. Wears a skirt tucked up into her belt like she doesn't care what you think, and boots with more dust than leather left. What are we looking for, you ask after 10 minutes of silent hiking? Signs. Of anything that shouldn't be where it is. Reassuring. The prairie stretches out ahead like someone ironed a giant sheet of burlap and sprinkled it with snakes. It's not empty. Just big. Loud in its silence. The wind brushes the grass like fingers through dry hair. Bugs buzz. A bird calls out once, gets no response, and gives up. Tess stops at a patch of trampled earth. Here, she says. You kneel down. The ground's been disturbed. Something moved through here recently. Large. Heavy. Not hoofed. Could be a bull, she says. Could be wild pigs. Could be a man who forgot his horse. Do we follow it? She's already walking. You sigh and go after her. Historians still argue whether the vast prairie was more friend than foe. Some say it offered freedom, space, opportunity. Others say it offered sunburn, disorientation, and the occasional overly curious coyote. You're starting to side with the latter. After about a mile, the trail disappears. Just ends. Whatever it was, Tess mutters, either flew away or sank. You glance around. Flew. She shrugs. You'd be surprised. You sit down on a flat rock to rest. The sun is high, but not brutal. The clouds are slowly gathering, thin streaks and cottony clumps. The air smells like dry grass and stubborn plants. Tess joins you. You've lasted longer than I figured, she says. Thanks. Most folks pass through. They want a story. A bite of something old. Then they realize the town doesn't want them, the food's weird, and the chickens are feral. All true. But you're still here. You think about that. She's right. You've been threatened, challenged, sneezed on by a horse, mildly poisoned by stew, and judged by a raccoon, and you're still here. You brush the dust off your pants. I think I'm just too tired to leave. She chuckles. The walk back is slower. The sky begins to shift, clouds thickening, wind cooling. The prairie hums like it's remembering something. Off in the distance, you see a dust devil. Small, dancing, spinning like it's practicing for something bigger. You point it out. Tess nods. Won't be the last. You reach town just as the first tumbleweed rolls lazily across the main road. Clara is sweeping her porch like she's trying to banish ghosts. The sheriff's out front, inspecting the sky like it insulted him. A few townsfolk are securing shutters, tying down barrels, moving animals. You tap someone on the shoulder. Is a storm coming? They glance up. Could be. Could pass. Could just be drama. You start helping tie things down. Not because anyone asks, but because the wind is already lifting your coat and pushing you around like a drunk friend. You secure chairs, close gates, and convince a mule that no, it doesn't need to wander into the barber shop. By late afternoon, the wind picks up properly. It whistles through gaps in the buildings. It tugs at hats. It carries dust in sheets and slices. The sky turns a color you don't have a word for, brownish, yellowish, gray. You duck into the saloon. Inside, it's dim and cozy. A fire crackles in the corner. Several regulars are nursing drinks, keeping their hats low, their eyes on the door. Even the piano is silent. The barkeep hands you a glass without asking. It smells faintly of oranges and regret. You sip. It burns, in a good way. Someone enters with a gust of wind, dust in their beard and a wild look in their eye. Fence down at Johnson's, he barks. Pigs on the loose. Everyone groans. I'll get the rope, someone mutters. I'm not chasing pigs again, someone else insists. You watch them trickle out, grumbling, faces covered with bandanas. You stay behind. Someone else will handle it this time. The storm doesn't hit, at least not the full fury. Just wind and swirling dirt, and the feeling of pressure pressing down on your collarbone. A dust storm's whisper, not its roar. By early evening, it passes. The town breathes again. People return, faces streaked, boots full of mud and stories. You step outside. The ground is damp. The air smells of earth and sage. Someone is playing the harmonica again, but slower, softer. Like a lullaby for the dirt itself. The sheriff walks by. Storm missed us. You nod. But next one might not. You nod again. He sips his coffee. I moved your stuff. You raise an eyebrow. Sheriff's office has a cot. You're not a deputy. But you're not a stranger anymore. And then he walks away. You stand there, unsure whether to feel honored or quietly panicked. You look up at the stars returning between the clouds. You survived the prairie. You survived the storm. You even got promoted to unofficial citizen. Which means the Wild West is either starting to trust you or lulling you into a false sense of comfort. You squint into the night. And swear the goat outside the bank is smiling. Dinner is an experience. Again. You end up back at Clara's, mostly because the wind carried you there, figuratively, this time. Her windows are fogged from steam, and the sign on the door now reads, in shaky chalk, no refunds. Not even verbal ones. You knock anyway. She opens the door, frowns at you like she's seeing a wet sock, and jerks her head to a table. Inside smells like stew again. Not the same stew, though. This one's darker, thicker, and bubbling in a way that feels conspiratorial. Clara slaps a bowl in front of you, no words. You take a tentative sniff. It smells like pepper, sorrow, and something pickled that definitely wasn't pickled on purpose. You eat it. Because what else are you going to do? As you chew, a man across the room asks that your boot in the trough. You pause mid-bite. I don't think so. He nods like he's not entirely convinced. If it is, the mule's chewin on it. Clara walks by, slapping a spoon against her palm. If the mule's chewin it, it belongs to the mule now. There's no room for rebuttal in that logic. You finish your meal and offer a polite thank you, to which Clara replies, and hands you something that might be dessert or might be soap. You pretend to eat it. Everyone seems satisfied. Outside, the wind has died down. The dirt has settled into the cracks between the planks on the road, and the air smells like earth and singed pine. You developed a strange fondness for the way everything here seems to settle just enough to fall apart again tomorrow. You walk slowly down the road, letting the town digest you along with your meal. And then, naturally, it gets weird. A man is shouting near the stables. Not panic shouting. Just loud. You turn the corner and spot him waving his arms. I'm telling you. That's not my horse. The stable boy is standing there, arms crossed, beside a horse that is clearly having none of this. Sir, you rode in on that horse this morning. No, I didn't. You called it Denise. The man squints. I call everything Denise. You step in. What's going on? The stable boy sighs. Denise here bit his hat. Now he's claiming she's a decoy. You look at the horse. She blinks slowly, jaw working like she's chewing on someone's reputation. You look at the man. He looks like he's lost 3 arguments to a chair. You decide to walk away before the story gets stranger, which feels like a gamble. As you make your way back toward the sheriff's office, something soft hits your face. You pause. Look up. It's raining. Not a storm. Just a soft drizzle, rare, delicate, and instantly appreciated. The dust darkens. The wood glistens. Even Myrtle, huddled under the overhang near the trough, looks vaguely less judgmental. You enter the sheriff's office. He's seated behind the desk, sipping from the same eternal mug. You said I could use the cot, you ask. He gestures to the corner. Don't say I didn't warn you. It squeaks like a guilty floorboard. You inspect it. It's short. Lumpy. The pillow is roughly the size of a baked potato. But after everything you've been through, it might as well be a featherbed. You sit. The cot shrieks. I warned you, the sheriff mumbles. You lie back, arms behind your head, and let the rain patter softly against the roof above. For once, the silence feels kind. Not the ominous, something's about to explode silence, but the kind that wraps around your shoulders and lets you exhale without bracing for impact. Busy day, you murmur. The sheriff doesn't respond. But a few minutes later, he tosses something your way. You catch it. It's a badge. Not a real one. Not silver. Not official. Just a wooden circle with Helpert scratched into it with what might have been a fork. You glance at him. This a promotion? More of a warning label, he says. You smile, turning it over in your fingers. It's rough, but it fits your pocket nicely. As you start to drift off, the wind picks up again. The rain slows. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks half-heartedly. And then, softly, from far down the road. We're out of molasses. Again. You close your eyes and whisper, I am not volunteering for that errand. The cot creaks. The rain whispers. And outside, the Wild West sleeps with one eye open. But you? You're just glad to be horizontal. You wake to the sound of thunder. Not the sky kind. The hoofbeat kind. Fast, pounding, rhythmic. The kind of thunder that says, someone's either fleeing or late for something dramatic. You sit up on the cot, which shrieks in protest, true to the sheriff's promise, and catch sight of the sheriff himself already lacing up his boots. His coffee still steaming on the desk. This means you've actually slept longer than him. A miracle. Or a trap. He nods toward the window. Riders. You move to the door and squint into the early morning haze. 3 horses. 1 wagon. Coming in fast from the north end of town, kicking up dust like they're trying to cover their tracks with an entire weather system. The lead horse is ridden by a woman with a red scarf and a long rifle across her back. The wagon behind is covered, jolting with every bump in the road. The horses stop abruptly in front of the general store. The wagon jerks to a halt behind them. People begin gathering on porches and boardwalks, rubbing sleep from their eyes and clutching biscuits or bedhead. The red-scarfed woman jumps down and shouts, "Get Doc Finch!" The mood shifts. You can feel it. Someone's hurt. The sheriff's already walking toward the wagon. You follow, because, apparently, this is what you do now. Inside the wagon, you see a man, young, pale, very unconscious. He's wrapped in blankets, one hand dangling limply from the side like a broken clock hand. What happened? The sheriff asks. Snakebite, the woman says. We were 2 hours east, near the old mill trail. He stepped in a brush pile. Did you tie it off? The sheriff asks. She nods. Used my bandana. He didn't even scream. Just said, or, shoot, and fell over. That sounds about right. Doc Finch appears moments later, bleary-eyed and already irritated. Bring him inside. And don't get snake blood on my rug this time. The man is carried away. The crowd thins. You and the sheriff return to the porch. The storm that never came last night has left a tension in the air. Everything smells damp, warm, and slightly electrical. The kind of weather that makes the hair on your arm stand up, even if you're not sure why. The sheriff glances at you. You afraid of snakes? You think back to the one that slid by your boot in silence a few days ago. Not afraid. But not eager for a rematch. He nods like that's a good answer. You got a job. You blink. Another one. Someone's got to check the trail. See if there's more. Maybe mark the spots. Folks walk that way. You stare at him. You want me to be the snake scout? You're light on your feet, he says. And you're already unlucky. That actually tracks. So now you're back on the trail again, this time with a stick, a length of rope, and a small pouch of chalk for marking places not to walk barefoot ever again. The path to the old mill is mostly dry. Cracked earth, thorny bushes, and the occasional deceptive patch of what looks like sand but is actually a colony of ants with opinions. You walk slowly, poking at anything that looks vaguely snake-shaped. You start to think everything looks vaguely snake-shaped. A root. A coiled rope. Your own bootlace. But it's peaceful out here, in its own menacing way. You hear birds. You feel the breeze. You step carefully. And that's when you hear it. HSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSS. You freeze. You don't look down. You don't blink. You just breathe. Very, very slowly, you glance toward your right foot. Coiled in a lazy spiral is a rattlesnake. Fat. Shiny. Disrespectful. Its head is lifted slightly, tongue flicking. It's rattle silent. You are standing an inch too close. You do not move. Not yet. Historians often argue whether frontier folk learned to live with snakes or just constantly walked in fear. Diaries suggest both. You, right now, would write a full novel on the topic. Carefully, so carefully, you step back. Just 1 foot. Then another. The snake watches. Then lowers its head. And slithers away. You don't breathe again for 15 seconds. Then you exhale, fall back onto a rock, and whisper to the sky, "I have had it with reptiles." You draw a large, angry chalk X in the dirt. Then another, just to be dramatic. You continue down the trail, shaken but intact, and reach the abandoned mill just before noon. It's a wreck now. Half a roof, busted wheel, wood warped from weather and raccoons with poor manners. But it's quiet. You check the area. No more snakes. Just one lizard doing push-ups on a stump like it owns the place. You take a break on the porch, which is mostly still attached. You eat half a biscuit someone packed for you, or possibly Clara, possibly the sheriff. It tastes like flour and dignity. As you rest, you hear thunder again. This time, real thunder. Clouds roll in from the west, thick and low. You pack up and start the walk back, faster now. Halfway to town, the rain starts. Not gentle. Not poetic. Just straight, hard rain, like the sky dumped out a bucket and muttered, "Good luck." By the time you return, you're drenched. People are rushing around again, pulling in laundry, covering windows, wrangling chickens who do not want to be wrangled. You drop your gear by the sheriff's office and sit on the stoop. Soaked, cold, boots squelching. The sheriff steps out, holds out a towel. You take it. Nod. You find any? He asks. 1. Still alive. Both of us, you say. He nods. That's the whole conversation. That night, the rain keeps falling. The bunkhouse leaks in 3 places. You sleep in the jail again, this time with a cot that creaks a little less and a pillow someone's clearly fluffed. And when you drift off, you dream of snakes. But in the dream, they tip their hats at you. And that's progress. It's sometime after midnight when a hand gently jostles your shoulder. You wake with a snort and half a grunt, eyes blurry, one boot still on, the other somewhere across the room. The sheriff stands over you, holding a lantern and wearing that same unreadable expression he always does, equal parts tired, irritated, and vaguely impressed that you're still alive. "Get up," he says softly. "We need your cot." You blink. What? Drunk gambler threw a chair through Clara's window. She wants him in a cell till he sobers or apologizes, whichever comes last. You sit up slowly. "Why my cot?" "Because it's the only one with no vomit on it." "Ah." You throw your coat on, grab your other boot from beneath the desk, and shuffle out onto the boardwalk while the sheriff hauls in the offending gambler, an older man with a red face, wild hair, and a firm grip on a banjo. "I only asked her if the soup had intentions," he howls as the sheriff drags him inside. You decide not to ask. Now you're outside in the dark, with nowhere to sleep. The storm has passed, but the air is still damp, and the boards beneath your boots are slick. A few lanterns flicker from second-story windows. A dog barks softly once, then falls silent. The town is resting again. You are not. You try the bunkhouse, just in case. Inside, it's chaos. Someone snoring like they're trying to drill into the earth. Another person is singing, quietly, drunkenly, about lost socks and heartbreak. You spot an empty cot, but before you can reach it, a rat scurries out from underneath. You close the door, quietly and with deep, internal resignation. You wander. Sleep doesn't seem to be on the table, so you do what any sensible person would do, you go for a walk. The night is cool. Damp. Silent in that eerie way small towns get after midnight, when even the ghosts are too tired to bother anyone. You pass the general store, where a rocking chair rocks very slowly even though there's no breeze. You do not investigate. You walk past the saloon, which is finally silent. Chairs flipped. Lamps out. A single playing card stuck to the window, Queen of Hearts. It winks at you in the lamplight. You pass Myrtle, snoozing beside the water trough. Her ears twitch as you pass. She does not open her eyes. That's the closest thing to affection you've ever gotten from her. Eventually, you find yourself on the far side of town, where the buildings thin out and the prairie returns. You sit on a dry patch of grass, look up at the stars, and breathe. Above you, the sky stretches endlessly. A quilt of constellations, bright, sharp, almost too many to count. You pick out Orion's belt. The Big Dipper. A cluster that looks suspiciously like Myrtle's face. You choose not to dwell on that. A cool wind brushes over the grass. You lie back, hat over your face, and listen. Crickets. Distant coyotes. The quiet shuffle of something that might be a possum. You're just starting to drift when a light appears. You sit up. Far in the distance, a lantern. Moving slowly. Too far to see who holds it. You watch, curious, a little unnerved. The light bobs. Pauses. Bobs again. It's headed vaguely toward town, but not directly. It's moving diagonally, like whoever carries it is circling. Then it disappears behind a hill. You wait. Nothing. Just stars again. You stand, dust yourself off, and walk back to town, your sleepiness now replaced by something tighter, something like awareness. At the sheriff's office, the light is still on. You knock softly. He opens the door, sees it's you, and says, "Banjo man fell asleep. Your cot's free." You step inside, glance at the now snoring gambler curled up on the floor, Banjo tucked under his arm like a teddy bear. You nod. By the way, someone's out there. Lantern on the hill. The sheriff raises an eyebrow. Did it look like they knew where they were going? Nope. He grunts. Could be a traveler. Could be someone making sure they're not seen. What do we do? He shrugs. Wait. They'll show themselves, or they won't. You lie back down, and the cot groans its usual protest. But it feels good. Familiar. And before sleep takes you again, you think. You've been yelled at, soaked, nearly bitten, tasked with snake reconnaissance, and evicted from your cot by a man with a banjo. And yet, here you are. Still breathing. Still here. Still slightly damp. And somehow, despite it all, you're not just surviving the Wild West anymore. You're participating in it. You wake with your mouth full of flannel and the distinct sensation that something is off. At first, it's subtle. The sheriff's office is unusually quiet. The banjo man is gone. The lanterns are out. The cot hasn't groaned in the past 5 minutes, which might be the most suspicious thing of all. You sit up slowly, stretch, and listen. Outside, something clinks. You peek through the slatted window blinds. The street's mostly empty. The early sun is barely above the horizon, painting the buildings in sleepy gold. But something's moving out there. Or someone. You lace up your boots, still muddy from yesterday's snake patrol, and slip outside. The harmonica player is back. Not playing, just standing near the jailhouse steps, holding his instrument like he's forgotten what it's for. His mustache is a little lopsided today. He gives you a sleepy nod. You hear the singing last night. You blink. No. He grunts. Then you slept better than I did. You step off the porch and wander toward the saloon, passing empty storefronts and a dog that raises its head just long enough to sigh at you before flopping back down. A soft clatter stops you. It's coming from behind the feed store. You round the corner and freeze. 2 men are hunched over a crate, whispering furiously. One of them is wearing a hat that's way too clean for this town. The other is holding a crowbar and a piece of paper. You clear your throat. They jump like guilty cats. Just taking inventory, one of them blurts. In the alley. Yup. That's where the surprise grain lives. The second man shoves the paper behind his back and grins. You squint. And notice something. The crate isn't marked feed or grain. It's marked property of Fort Downing. Now that's a long ride. The first man coughs. You see any raccoons lately? You blink. No. Good. Keep it that way. They tip their hats and scurry off like tumbleweeds with legs. You step closer to the crate. Peer at it. Whatever it was holding, it's gone now. You walk away slowly, filing this away in the growing mental folder labeled Future Problems. Back at the general store, Miss Reader is arguing with a man about the price of buttons again. I told you, if you want buttons, you bring eggs. You can't eat buttons. Well, maybe if they were pickled. Out! You catch her eye. She points a spoon at you. You see that crate? You nod. Wasn't feed. Didn't think so. She returns to her pricing board, muttering about contraband, Fort Downing, and the impossibility of honest commerce in a dishonest world. You keep walking. The livery stable is quiet, except for Myrtle chewing hay like it insulted her once and she never got over it. The stable boy nods at you. We got a problem. Just one. The new guy put the wrong saddle on Clara's mule. You pause. Clara has a mule. She does now. You follow him around back, where a short, muscular mule is standing proudly beside a crumpled saddle that looks like it lost a bar fight. Clara is there too, arms crossed, expression carved in stone. He tried to mount her from the wrong side, she says. You wince. Now she won't let anyone within 10 feet unless they're holding a peach. The mule confirms this by baring its teeth at a man holding a canteen. The sheriff arrives, surveys the scene, and sighs. I told you all, mules don't forgive. You back away carefully. Later that afternoon, you're assigned to assist the schoolhouse. Miss Ada, the teacher, has decided today is the day her students learn about practical geometry, using nails, boards, and the concept of how not to build a chicken coop. Every group gets a plan, she says. Every plan will fail. That's the lesson. You're paired with 3 students, one who speaks only in questions, one who keeps drawing raccoons instead of measuring, and one who appears to be actively eating chalk. Your team's coop ends up looking like a sideways canoe with windows. Miss Ada nods. Acceptable. Then it collapses. She claps. Lesson learned. You eat lunch in the shade of the water tower, gnawing on a biscuit so dense it bends the nail sticking out of the bench beside you. As you're finishing, a woman approaches, holding a wide-brimmed hat and a stack of old newspapers. You the helper? You nod. Usually. I need someone to climb up to the bell tower. You glance upward. Way upward. The chapel's bell tower is tall, creaky, and shaped like an architectural dare. The ladder is vertical. The ladder is also missing 2 rungs. What's up there? A nest, she says. It's blocking the chime. You sigh and take the papers. The climb is slow. Wobbly. Loud. You nearly fall twice. Once because a step gives out, once because a spider insists on doing an aerial ambush. At the top, you find the nest. And the squatter. A very large owl. It blinks at you. You blink back. You decide not to engage. Instead, you gently nudge the edge of the nest with a folded newspaper and say, just, maybe scoot over. The owl hoots. But it shifts. The bell is free. You descend in triumph, and minor trauma. The woman thanks you with a slice of pie. You're too polite to ask what's in it. You just eat. It's oddly good. Possibly figure. Possibly plum. Possibly beef? You finish the day wiping down a wagon wheel with linseed oil, staring into the middle distance like a man who's aged 5 years in 5 hours. As the sun sets, the wind picks up again. Coyotes yip in the hills. The harmonica sighs somewhere near the bunkhouse. And someone, far off, starts whistling a tune that makes the hair on your arms rise. The same one you heard just before the lantern on the hill. You look out past the edge of town. The prairie is quiet. But not still. You're not sure what's out there. But it's watching. And now you're watching back. By now, you've stopped questioning why every new day in this town begins with something missing. This morning, it's your boots. You wake in the jailhouse again, on your borrowed cot, pillow lumpy but familiar, body sore in ways that no longer surprise you. You swing your legs over the edge, stretch, yawn, and stop. No boots. Just socks. One of which is somehow damp, and you don't want to know why. You check under the cot. Behind the desk. Under the gambler's banjo, which has mysteriously returned and is resting in the corner like a sleeping threat. Nothing. You step outside barefoot, the jailhouse steps warm from the sun already climbing. The sheriff sitting on the boardwalk, hat low, sipping coffee like he's in a different genre of story entirely. Someone took my boots, you say. He doesn't even look up. Welcome to the club. You blink. How big is this club? About 7 members. All in town. All bootless. Across the street, you spot Reader standing on a crate, shouting. I swear, if I find whoever took my left galosh, I'm gonna tan their hide and make a new one. You look up and down the road. People are grumbling. One man is using burlap sacks as shoes. Another is walking carefully in 2 mismatched wooden clogs that clearly belong to a child. A boot thief. Someone in town has very specific tastes. The sheriff sighs. 3rd time this month. Either it's a prank, or someone's trying to build a terrible scarecrow. Do we investigate? He hands you a piece of paper. A list of names. All victims of the boot bandit. At the top, you. At the bottom, Clara, again. Well, you mutter. At least I'm in good company. You begin your investigation where you always do, Clara's. She answers the door barefoot, already furious. They took my cooking boots, she growls. Cooking boots. They're greased just right. I slide across the floor like a dancer with vengeance in her heart. You take a cautious step back. Did you see anything? She huffs. Only that Myrtle's been muttering about fresh souls and walking a mile in someone else's destiny. Could be nonsense. Could be motive. You nod, scribble her cryptic words down, and head for Myrtle. She's where she always is, beside the trough. This time, she's not judging the horses. She's judging the sky. Boots are power, she says without preamble. And power always gets stolen. You blink. Are you suggesting you took them? She snorts. If I'd taken your boots, I'd wear them in front of you. Fair point. As you leave, you spot something odd, hoof prints. Not fresh. But deep. Like someone walked through with boots that had metal caps. Oddly, symmetrical. Almost too symmetrical. You follow them. Around the corner. Past the saloon. To the bank. And there, lounging beside the front steps, chewing something that is definitely not hay, is the goat. The goat. The goat who has defied logic, municipal policy, and basic livestock etiquette for over a week. The goat is wearing your left boot. And beside him? The right one. You stare. He stares back. Then, mockingly, sits on them. You sigh. Deeply. Fully. From your spirit. The bank teller opens the door behind you. Oh, yeah. He's been collecting them. Been dragged in footwear here all week. Sleeps on them like trophies. You crouch down. "Okay, buddy. We need to have a chat." The goat does not respond. You try to grab one boot. He headbutts you. You stumble backward, dignity barely intact. The sheriff arrives a few minutes later, holding a broom. "Move aside." He taps the goat gently. The goat stands. Walks around the corner. Then returns, wearing someone else's slippers. The sheriff retrieves your boots, slightly chewed but wearable. You thank him, slide them on, and promise to ignore the bite marks if they don't itch. Later that day, you find yourself helping with the town notice board, which has once again collapsed under the weight of passive-aggressive posters. "Please return my curtain rod." Or "return my curtains." Either works. To whoever keeps yodeling outside the saloon at 3 a.m., "Please stop." Or commit. Found, 1 boot. No, not yours. As you're hammering up a new board, someone rushes down the street. It's Millie from the laundry station. She's out of breath, pointing toward the South Ridge. "You gotta see this," she wheezes. Wagon. Broken wheel. Travelers stuck. You grab your hat, boot secure, and follow. A half-mile out of town, sure enough, a wagon listing to one side, one wheel shattered. A family of 4, a mother, father, 2 children, sitting nearby, tired and dusty. They've clearly been through something. "We hit a rock," the father explains. "Wheel just crumbled." The sheriff soon arrives with a repair crew, but it's slow going. While they work, you offer the kids a piece of candy, which might have expired during the Civil War, and help the mother with her firewood pile. As night falls, you walk the family back to the edge of town. They'll stay in the bunkhouse, there's room again, now that most of the snoring harmonica squad has migrated to the hayloft. You feel proud. Useful. Like a person whose boots are where they should be. Back at the sheriff's office, he hands you a new slip of paper. On it, your name. Beneath it, temporary deputy. You glance up. He shrugs. Until you get bored. Or bitten. You fold the paper. Slide it into your pocket next to your helper badge. You don't answer. But you don't need to. The cot creaks in welcome. You lie back. And the town breathes, quiet and strange, around you. You wake to the smell of cornbread. Warm, sweet, real cornbread. Not boot-flavored biscuits or pickled despair. Actual, honest to goodness, sunlit from the inside cornbread. You sit up. The cot groans a little, but in a friendlier way than before, like it's saying, "We've been through things, you and I." You stretch, yawn, and step outside. The sky is blue. Not storm-coming blue, not dust waiting to happen blue, just clean, clear, untroubled blue. A bird chirps. No one is yelling. No raccoons are threatening legal action. Even Myrtle looks contemplative. You breathe deep and wonder, have I survived the Wild West? Then someone shouts, "Who stole my pants?" and you relax. Everything's still weird. Just a little quieter about it today. Clara is setting out trays of cornbread on her windowsill. She sees you, squints, and says, "Don't get greedy. 1 piece." You hold up your hands. Scout's honor. You were never a scout. Then consider it deputy discretion. She snorts. Hands you a square as warm as a handshake. You take a bite. It tastes like closure. You stroll down the street. Slowly. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because there's no reason to rush anymore. You've made it this far without being shot, eaten, arrested, for long, or trampled. A child waves to you. You wave back. The kid immediately falls into a barrel, which seems about right. The sheriff's already outside his office, coffee in hand, boots up on the railing. He doesn't say anything. Just tilts his head. A silent hello. You sit beside him. Today, the harmonica is silent. The bank goat is napping. The saloon is serving actual breakfast without a fist fight. And someone, you don't know who, has fixed the town bell. It rings once at mid-morning, clear and proud. You did all right, the sheriff says. You glance at him. That's supposed to be carved into my tombstone. He shrugs. If you die here, probably. It's reusable. You both sit there for a while. Not saying much. Just letting the day settle. You remember your first few hours in this place, misreading signs, being challenged to duels over drinks, chased by pigs, mocked by livestock, temporarily deputized by accident. And now? You're part of it. Sort of. People nod when they pass you. Sometimes they hand you odd errands. Once, someone trusted you with a recipe card. That's progress. Later in the day, you help fix a fence, sort beans for the church pantry, and find a missing hat behind the schoolhouse. It was on a cat. Don't ask. Dinner is quiet. Beans, bread, and a slice of Clara's mystery pie, this one tastes like forgiveness. And as the sun drops low and gold across the rooftops, painting the whole town in honey and dust, you take one last slow walk around the block. You pass the saloon. The piano's playing a song with no name. You pass the bunkhouse. Someone's gently snoring, no harmonica in sight. You pass Myrtle. She snorts in your general direction. That's affection now. You end up back where it all started, the porch outside the sheriff's office. The cot inside is waiting. So is the pillow. You've earned both. As the last light fades and the sky rolls over into deep velvet, you feel something settle in your chest. Not peace, exactly. But of a kind of uneasy friendship with chaos. The Wild West doesn't want you comfortable. But maybe it stopped trying to eat you alive. Maybe. You slip back into the jailhouse, boots off, hat tilted forward, cot groaning once beneath you. And as you close your eyes, a thought rolls through your mind like a tumbleweed. You survived. Technically. And that's enough. The prairie is quiet now. The dust has settled. The boots are back where they belong. Outside, the wind hums low through the fences, brushing gently across the porch railings, ruffling through the pages of an old, forgotten ledger. Lanterns glow in second-story windows. A rocking chair creaks on its own, not from ghosts, just from the air stretching out its limbs. In the bunkhouse, someone sighs in their sleep. In the barn, a horse shifts. A mule dreams of peaches. And here, in this old wooden room that smells faintly of coffee and boot polish, you let yourself melt into the cot. Your breath deepens. Your muscles release their stories, one by one, dusty, peculiar tales of goats, card games, and sideways chicken coops. The walls exhale around you. The stars lean in close. And the world forgets, just for a while, to be sharp. You're not running anymore. You're not proving anything. You're not earning your place or dodging duels or rescuing missing spoons. You're just here. Right now. Still. Let the last sounds fade, the slow tick of a clock, the distant bark of a coyote too lazy to commit to menace, the low, sweet hush of the wind folding itself around the hills. Let them drift away, like the last echo of a harmonica on the breeze. And as the west tucks itself in for the night, so do you. Soft. Warm. Whole. You made it. Sweet dreams, partner.